Greg Sutton, Chief Academic Officer for Hardin County Schools, and I want to welcome everybody out there to our next session of Impacting Learning and Empowering Students. We had a great session last month. We were showcasing our interventionists here in the district and kind of the role that they're playing in helping our students to show that 1 year of growth. And today we kind of have a little different take. Instead of interventionist teachers, we're actually going to be focusing on our enrichment side of the process. You know, here in Hardin County Schools, we always talk about innovative practices. You started to hear us talk a little bit about, problem and project-based learning. But we have students that perform at a very high level, and we work very hard to meet those needs. So today here with us in the studio, we have one of our teachers, one of our enrichment teachers at East Hardin Middle School. We have Miss Desiree Denham. Desiree, glad to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.
Awesome. And also our middle school director of curriculum instruction and assessment, Ms. Kristen Swords, is here with us today. She helps guide a lot of things we do at the middle school level, specifically working closely with our enrichment teachers. Kristen, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, just going to kind of direct our first question here today towards you, Kristen. How did Hardin County Schools go about determining the fact that we needed enrichment teachers, coming out of the pandemic, and also, why did we choose middle schools? Why did we not say, hey, this may be better for elementary and high? I'll let you kind of touch on that for us a little bit today.
Absolutely. As you've already stated, we really want to meet the needs of all of our students. And so when we started looking at the data and the supports that we have in place, we provide a lot of assistance at the elementary level. We have instructional assistance and a lot of supports there. And we just wanted to make sure that we were equipping our middle schools with those same supports. And so we have interventions in place. Coming out of the pandemic, we realized that there were some learning gaps that we needed to fill. And so we put those interventionists in place to help with those gaps and support those students. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we wanted to make sure we were doing the same for our students that were achieving above grade level. So we have our students that are performing at the 80th percentile or above, and we wanted to make sure that we were putting things in place that we could continue to push those students, encourage them to find interest in things that maybe they wouldn't have been able to discover in the regular classroom setting. And so that's why we really decided to target our middle schools with these positions, and each middle school has one enrichment teacher.
All right, so every middle school has one enrichment teacher. Some things really stuck out to me there that you said was data-driven. Mm-hmm. We're making data-driven decisions, and that's very important. Desiree, when we talked to our Hardin County community out here, when you first heard about these enrichment positions, what motivated you to even apply for this enrichment position? What caught your eye, I guess I should say?
Okay, so that is a little interesting. So last year I actually applied to East Hardin Middle School as a math teacher. And with these enrichment positions being new, it was something that I hadn't quite heard all about just yet. And so after my interview, Ms. Nickel called me and she expressed interest in having me at East Hardin Middle School. And she also introduced the idea of me being the enrichment teacher at East Hardin. So I asked if I could have the evening to think about it, kind of process and brainstorm what I thought. And when I got home, I started contacting some previous teachers that I'd already worked with and to kind of bounce some ideas around. And so I called her the next day and was like, this is it, I want to do it. So I really consider myself to be a creative person, and I enjoy creating real life problems and projects for students to collaborate and work together with each other and also within the community. So I thought that this would be a good opportunity for me and my creative flexibility.
You always talk about how do we get kids to think, to create, to imagine, to plan, to collaborate,
yes,
to work together, to go beyond what they think they can do, in certain things. So I think it's what enrichment kind of does, reach some of those kids maybe to a certain percentile. But Kristen, when you think about this, when we say enrichment, all of a sudden we actually created these positions, knowing we had to reach these high kids. You mentioned that a while ago based on data. Well, how do you go about thinking about the curriculum side as a director on what are we going to teach with these students?
Right, so we worked very closely with our gifted and talented teachers. Because these students are close to that threshold and performing above grade level, we felt that our gifted and talented teachers would be able to help us with the curriculum aspect on that. And so we worked closely with them. We also looked at a strong career focus within these classes and how these classes could be connected to the pathways that we have available at the high schools. So we talked about what curriculum can we include in these classes that will give students exposure to the pathways and careers that might be of interest to them. And then we, as always, looked at input from our local business partners. And one of the things that they've always told us is that they really want our students to develop those skills, employability skills or work ethic skills. And so within these classes, we have provided opportunities for leadership within an authentic approach. And so we've provided opportunities for a leadership focus that gives them the opportunity to focus on public speaking and collaboratively working with other students and looking at setting goals and then going back and reassessing those goals. And so with the combination of our GT teacher input and what the data was telling us about our pathways and how we needed to have a focus on certain pathways and providing exposure to those for our students, and then our local business partners and input from them. That helped guide our focus areas for this class.
Because here's the thing, what our communities understand, when your child is sitting in one of our middle schools, everything is starting to be more career focused. By the time they get into the 8th grade, in second semester of their 8th grade, they're sitting down with a counselor, one-on-one, or an administrator at the high school and saying, we're going to plan out your 4-year plan. We're going to look at the academic planner and say, what pathway do you think you would like to explore? They've been doing some exploration all through middle school. They're going to continue to explore on into high school. And what kids need to understand, I want families to understand as they hear this, kids have an opportunity to complete multiple pathways while in high school if they schedule correctly and plan correctly. And it's not just meeting with a counselor or administrator. Like you said, it's also getting our business partners involved, and work ethic certification, where that comes in, where we sit down and do mock interviews in front of our community sponsors. So this conversation right here encompasses everywhere we want to be from a standpoint of Hardin County Schools and moving students forward. Now, Desiree, more specifically, Kristen kind of designed the framework, but for you, from a curriculum instruction, perspective, can you kind of give us some idea of what you're teaching this year? Maybe a little bit about a project-based learning model that you've used in your classroom that you can share with us that's more specific.
Okay. So I'll share first kind of what I did last year, and then I'll get into what I'm doing this year. So last year I taught 2 quarters of STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And then I taught a quarter of public speaking and a quarter of creative writing. So one of my favorite projects that I did last year in my STEAM class was in the spring, and previously in my math classes I did a smaller scaled version of this project called the Mini Golf Project. And with our community here in Hardin County, with the new Heartland Mini Golf being under construction, I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to build on that. So I created what I called the Mini Golf Project, and I presented students with the idea that they were the engineers for the new Heartland Mini Golf, and their job was to create the 18th hole. And so they had to work with their partners to create a budget. They had to create deadlines, they had to come up with a unique theme, and their hole had to also have at least 3 different obstacles. So during that project, students not only planned, designed, constructed, and then we actually played mini golf at school at the end, but I contacted Renee Sullivan at Heartland Mini Golf and kind of explained to her, like, hey, this is our project, this is what we're doing. When do you guys think that you will be open? And she responded, and she was so excited, and she actually let us go before they were open to the public. So we got to take all of our students and to see a real life application of what that looks like in opening a business. So they got to see a little bit of the construction side and what it takes to truly open a business. So that was one of my favorites from
last year. So they got to go on site.
Yes, and we got to play mini golf.
During the construction.
Yes, and they, it was, for the most part, it was done. They just needed to add a few extra things, but they also had, their game yard open. So we had a wonderful afternoon.
All right, and that's big for our community. I've talked to Stuart Sullivan, the owner there, and I know that's been a big excitement for us. And once again, it shows how our community, partners, our community business are willing to open their doors to us and open our doors to our future business leaders. Which are our students that we're training now. Sounds like a fun lesson. I wish I could have been there to play with you.
So do you want to hear about this year?
I do.
Okay, so this year I'm teaching Lego robotics first quarter, journalism second quarter, third quarter I'm teaching a space class, and last quarter I'm teaching marketing. So right now I'm teaching Lego robotics, so we are using the Lego education curriculum that they provide, and students are working in small groups, and they have to think about what it would be like to be an astronaut and what problems, social and physical problems, would an astronaut experience while living in space. So in their groups, they brainstorm these problems, and they have to create multiple solutions. And through that, then they built a robot that would go to space with them to help them overcome these obstacles.
So I'm hearing different pathways here. Go ahead. Do you have something you want to add to that?
No, I was just going to say there are so many aspects to that.
Yes.
Not only the engineering side where they're building the robot and
Yes.
coding it to do tasks to help with the solution to the problem, but they also have the presentation side of
Yes.
the project, a research side of the project. So they're gaining so many skills from this one unit in this first quarter that they're having.
Yeah, and I also heard business,
Yes.
heard
Yes.
engineering.
Yes.
I'm hearing all these pathways, these 40 pathways we continue to talk about, and comes that in just a few of your lessons there. What about the public speaking? How do kids feel about that when you say we're going to do some public speaking, we're going to practice that? How does that go in your class?
So at first, as a new teacher at East last year,
Right.
I returned from maternity leave, and all my kids were like, "Oh, we're doing public speaking." I was like, "Okay, no, but listen, it's going to be fun, okay?" And I would ask them, "Okay, who loves Disney?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, I love Disney." And I was like, "Great." So I explained the first project that we did. And so they were employees of Walt Disney World, and their task last year was the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. And so for the anniversary, their task was they had to retire Minnie and Mickey.
Oh.
I know. Some of them were very upset with me.
Yes.
But it was all in good fun, okay? So they had to retire Minnie and Mickey, and they had to also create a new logo. So we had some digital art in there, and a new slogan for Walt Disney World. So they did work in small groups for that because there were several different things that they had to do for their project, and then they presented it to the class. So it was a wonderful experience. And a lot of the kids who had my public speaking last year, they went from, "Oh, this is public speaking," to, "Can I take your class again next quarter?" for creative writing. So.
But they had to create a new character? Is that right?
Well, no, they didn't have to create their own character.
Okay.
They could if they wanted. They did
Okay.
have that freedom, but they had to just pick two, or they could pick two already and use that.
I like the creativity in that. Go ahead.
That's what I was going to say, the creativity, and that's why maybe your reluctant speakers were so willing to speak, because you connected to them. Most students can connect to Disney in some way. Either they've been there, they watch the Disney Channel, they're familiar with the characters, and so by giving them something that they're passionate about and that they're familiar with, they were willing to do that speaking aspect of it.
Teaching them to take chances too, because if you brought this up, I mean, the historical side of this, when you look at the history of Walt Disney himself, the first character he created, I think, was Mortimer Mouse.
Yes, we actually learned about him too.
And it didn't. It failed in a sense. It didn't. The audience didn't accept it, but Mickey Mouse went through and shows you not to give up.
Yes.
So I think that's a good lesson to be learned.
Yeah, and I think one of the things the kids were most excited about was at the end, I uploaded all of their logos, their slogans, and then their character choices onto a Google form, and we sent it out school-wide. So all the teachers and all the students got to vote, and so they were so excited because they're very competitive. So I did give an award for each class for the top overall speech, the top character choices, and the slogan. So.
Outstanding. Let's talk about short-term and long-term goals. This enrichment class is something. I think when you think about, what can this look like long-term, but what are some of your short-term and long-term goals you've set for yourself in this position?
I think some of my short-term goals can also be long-term goals. My goals for my students is that I am offering enrichment opportunities for them and introducing different career paths or choices or ideas that they might have not otherwise heard of. So my goal for both of us is hopefully I can get them to move towards the gifted and talented program, but if not, if I can just introduce to them a new career that they might have not thought of before, I think that would be successful.
You're opening their minds to new opportunities.
Yes.
And that's critical. Sometimes kids don't know what's out there.
Yes.
And that when something they can attach to, that's how they make certain choices. Sometimes kids find out what they don't like by exploring, and then what they do like.
Yes.
And it's okay to eliminate some things.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
I think kids sometimes feel like, well, I got to choose a pathway, or I have to explore this pathway or this career. That's what they're doing. They're exploring, and they have the right to choose beyond that and eliminate some and continue with others. And this is kind of a question for both of you, but when it comes to selecting the students, for this enrichment class, how do we go about selecting those students? I don't know who wants to touch on that first, but
talk a little bit in
Okay.
general, and then you can talk specifically about what East Hardin has done.
Okay.
We start with looking at the students' iReady diagnostic results. And so we identify students that are performing above grade level, 80th percentile or above. But we also take a lot of input from teachers and staff members in the building that have had experience with those students and feel that maybe they are a true leader or they're showing signs of giftedness in a certain area. And so we take feedback from our teachers and we look at the different topics or focus areas for each quarter or trimester for some of our middle schools, and we think specifically about each individual student and who would benefit most from that focus for that quarter. And so each school has a different focus. Each quarter, most of our middle schools are starting out with the Lego robotics for first quarter or trimester. But we also consider surveying our students and who is interested in VEX or Lego robotics or who is interested in public speaking journalism. So we take many things into consideration outside of their original iReady results. And you can speak to what East Hardin has done too, if you don't care.
I would say we've basically done just that. So Megan Hobbs, our gifted and talented teacher, and myself, we sat down and we kind of came up with a list of ideas of things that we thought would be fun to teach and that students would be interested in. And then once we took our data and looked at the students, we talked to the students one by one. Hey, these are the classes that we could possibly offer next year. Which ones do you like? And so by then we narrowed down what we wanted to teach. And then we again asked the students, because I think instead of career focused, it's really student focused because we want to teach what they want to learn. And then we let the students essentially pick which classes they wanted to take.
Let's talk about this a little bit. Anytime you start something new, you have some challenges and obstacles. What are some of those challenges and obstacles you faced heading into this year?
I think just the newness of it all and not really knowing what to expect. One of the challenges we have had is placing our incoming sixth graders, since 6th and 7th graders moved to 7th and 8th grade so we can get that teacher feedback in the building, but sometimes it can be challenging to get feedback from feeder schools. But another challenge, it's more of a personal challenge, is I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So whenever I'm teaching something new, trying to overcome the thought of I need to be an expert in this, like Lego robotics. I've been just a little stressed about it at first. But I have the Lego kids, and I have these kids, and they are amazing. So it's really just being able to give up, control of the classroom and letting the kids take the lead in their learning.
Go ahead.
In talking with our other enrichment teachers, they echo the same thing about this particular Lego unit, and they're used to being in a regular content class, very much so the leader. And in this class, oftentimes you're the facilitator and the students really lead the instruction and where the content goes for the day. And so with the Lego robotics, it's very much centered around problem solving and critical thinking. And the students just need time to get in and explore the coding and what they can get the robot to do. And so some teachers do struggle with that a little bit, letting go of that control or having a specific plan, because the students are really leading their learning. They're inquiring about, well, what would happen if I do this, and what would happen if I program it to do this. And so the students are very much so creating the agenda for the day.
This type of learning is what gets kids to want to get up and come to school.
Yes.
Sitting in a desk in a straight row and looking straight ahead for 6 hours a day is not what motivates a kid. Authentic learning experiences. I'm going to finish on this today. We've already talked about this some. We've hit on the pathways hard, but the soft skills and the work ethic. And how does this class and your project-based learning focus how does it promote the work ethic and soft skills? I want you to touch on that one more time for our community out there.
So we do focus on PBL, so project or problem-based learning. So all of our students work in small groups. At the beginning of every project, they're presented with the problem or the project, but they also create their group norms. So they decide up front what their expectations are, and they even plan out, what their roles are. They have to work on collaborating, communicating, social skills with each other, professional communication skills if they have to interview, staff members or other people within the community. Some other soft skills that they have to work on is just their self-awareness and their time management, and to be able to stay organized and focused. So.
Well, I want to, Chris, any last few comments before we go ahead and we're just down just a few minutes here. Anything you want to add about the pathways, about what this enrichment course is doing, anything about PBL, anything you want to add before we go today?
Absolutely. I just want to thank Desiree. Her creativity with this position has really opened doors for her students, and all of our enrichment teachers that are in this position have done just the same. And so as we continue to support really our entire district taking this move towards project and problem-based learning and coaching our teachers on how we can provide opportunities like this for all of our students. We're very excited about their enthusiasm towards positions like this and this type of learning for our students.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today here on Impact Learning and Empowering Students. We appreciate all of our teachers. We've had a great start to the school year. The date today is, what is the date today? August
25th.
August 25th. We're coming to you today, and we're so excited the fact that we've had a great start to the school year, the learning experiences we're offering students, and we are impacting learning and empowering students through our great teaching, not just through our enrichment, but across the district. And we know we have some vertical line processes that are taking off here in our district, and thank you all, our community partners, for being a big part of that and buying into what we're doing and supporting our teachers. I can't thank you enough for that. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.